Okay, so this batch of Thinset's a little bit on the runnier side. So what we're going to do here is, normally we would trowel it onto the wall and trowel out our patterns on our parallel lines there on the wall. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to do that on the back of the tile, and we're going to backbutter the wall instead. So normally we backbutter the tile and trowel out on the wall, but this time, until it thickens up a little bit, we're going to backbutter the wall instead and trowel out the tile here. We're aiming for, pretty close to 100% coverage here. That's in a wet area, and so they want 95% coverage. That's the Tile Council of North America. They want 95% coverage. So we like to use this. This is called the backbutter buddy. It's a very useful, almost like a lazy Susan type thing. And it fits over a standard bucket from Lowe's or Home Depot. And we just put it on there and use it to rotate the tiles around as we're backbuttering. It makes it a lot more efficient. Alright, so now that I've keyed in the initial skim coat on the back, I'm adding additional mortar on there. And the additional mortar is what we're going to use to actually comb out all parallel lines, and I'm using a 1/2 inch trowel here because anytime you have a tile dimension larger than 12 inches, that's considered a large format tile. So anytime you have a large format tile greater than 12 inches, it's considered, large format. So I always like to use the 1/2 inch trowel for that. And Tile Council also recommends that for you to trowel this way, the short distance across a tile. And I'll show you why. So, and at a 45-degree angle, you don't want to go low like that. You want them to be deep. So 45 degrees, see? And then you come back and do the other side. Keep them all in the same direction. Do not do what other fools do, and don't swirl it around or anything. Perfectly straight like this. I'm going to come back and fix this in a minute. But I just want to show you how the lines are supposed to look. And the reason why they tell you to use the short dimension is because the air has less distance to travel. So the air that's in these valleys here will just shoot out the ends this way. Whereas if I made them lengthwise, it would be harder to manipulate the tile into place. I mean, this thing weighs a lot, and this is only a ceramic tile. When I do 1/2 inch travertine, I forget about it, these things can weigh 20 pounds. So, but anyway, when you have that much mortar on the back of one of these things and trying to push it against the wall and get it to mush down can be difficult. So you always want to do things in your favor here. Use the proper mechanical advantages to help you get the job done. So you can see it's still a little bit runny, so I prefer to just apply it to the wall with a 6-inch taping knife. Sometimes the trowel, the flat edge of the regular trowel can be too much to deal with, especially when you're going up the wall this high and you're starting to get above your head. So we just start keying it in until we get all of this covered. So we're going to cover this area right here in between these lines that I've drawn here. Okay, so when you're dealing with this Curdy Rondeck corner pieces here, there's two different ways to do it. Some people will tile in the entire edge all the way up, and then you can just stick this behind in the mud behind all of them, and that's fine too. I do it both ways. I guess just the way it worked out today, we had cemented it earlier in the lower section and just made sure it was straight. So now we're going to put this in here, and the thing to remember is to keep this clean, but to keep the skim coat troweled all the way to the level so that the plastic is completely embedded in it. And there's a white edge along there that when you set the tile in there will give you a perfect grout joint. So we're going to set the tile in here and push the tile in and make sure I'm going to go perpendicular to my, remember all my lines are going this way because that's the shorter side of the tile. So I'm going to go perpendicular And then when I'm done and the tile's sort of in place and sticking on the wall, I'm going to make sure we're all the way up against that Curdy Rondac piece so that we're going to have that perfect grout line that continues all the way down. Okay. And then one thing I always do is I always check for level. Okay, so every time I put a tile on the wall here, first thing I always do is, am I flat? Am I going straight up? I want to make sure every single tile when I go up the wall is flat. And so it looks like here, just from, if you look at the bubble there, it looks like the bottom end needs to come in just a frog here. So I'm just going to push the bottom end of this tile a little bit, and you'll see the thinsets start to ooze out a little, so you know it was definitely going in. And you retake your measurement and you're perfect. You're right in the center. Then what I always do too is I get the bigger 4-footer out and I'm making sure that I'm flat all the way up. You can see the bottom tile all the way up to this one here, and they're nice and flat, so there's no change of plane there. So this tile is now in, and then one other sanity check I'm going to do here is take the 2-foot level and bridge across and see if we're level there. And you can see we're right smack dab in the middle there. This is perfectly level, going right across these two. So to me, it doesn't matter what order I put tiles in. I'm accurate enough that I can feel confident enough that I can put a tile here, put a tile 10 feet away over here, and when I measure across, it's going to be perfect. So prior to putting this tile on, what I'm going to do is put a couple of my tile leveling clips there. And so here you can see my nicely combed ridges are here. Now the thing to remember, when you put the tile in place, you don't want to just mash it down low. You want to make sure first that you can feel a little bit of a resistance and that it's not automatically going to set in from this other tile that's already there. It's got to be at the same level. So it's best to come at it from outside and push in without it going way down too deep below it. That's how you get lippage. So the idea is to just mash it down until such time that they're level. Then you can do all your spirit level activity, make sure the things are shimmed up into the proper orientation there, and then we'll stick our little wedges in here. So the wedges, we kind of go in like this. We'll tighten them down in a minute with a tool. And we're going to clean this out in a minute, because you don't want an excess of cement building up there on you. I can see this has to come over a bit there. Now I'm going to take my level and put it on top of it and see if we're level, and we are. So we're pretty good in there. And then I always check the side edge of it as well. And he just needs to come in a little like this in the bottom. And move that over there. Then I'm going to check the... And on this one here, it looks like the top needs to go in a bit. And you can tell because I can see there's a little bit of lippage right there. So I know that that top end has to go in a little more. So that's the benefit of not just mashing it all the way in at first. The idea is to, similar to the way we wet shimmed, where you just put the board on and individually move things in and out until it is nice and level, so you don't get any lippage there. So I'm going to put this other clip in here. And I'm going to take my level, and you can see every time I put a piece in, you're almost spending 5 minutes per piece just checking level. You know, you shouldn't see any rocking. So this is nice and straight there. That's nice and just, you hear it smack? That's perfectly perfectly straight up and down, and my bubble is right in the middle there. So this whole wall right here, it's just perfectly straight up and down. There's no curving in or out, and you can tell because at the end of the day you won't have it square, or your tiles will start veering away from the wall. You'll find yourself putting in a ton of thinset just to get the thing on. So now that I've got my clips on there, I'm going to take my tool here and just tighten down these. Actually, these already went in tight enough. I may have to adjust this. There we go. These are going good. And as you tighten this down, what it does is, because the flat edge of this wedge here squeezes against both tiles, it forces them both to be at the exact same level with each other. There's no lippage at all whatsoever there. Zero. Then after I get all those clipped in, I take my level and I double check everything again. Up and down is good. Horizontal, I can adjust it a teeny bit because you can see what happened when we tightened in this thing. It tends to force it out a little bit. So we have to take our mallet. I just give it a few love taps. And it forces it back into place. Right. So now when I recheck, there we go, we're perfect. Perfect on that dimension. Let's see how these two go across here. That's good and level there. So now we are ready to move on to the next tiles. Okay, so the way you tell that you did a great job and that there's no lippage is, I usually take the flat surface of my wedge. You should be able to go back and forth and it shouldn't snag at all, okay? If you already hit lippage, that's what would happen. You get stuck. See, the back end of this, the tail end of this wedge, is not even a 1/16 of an inch. So if there was any lippage, and that's less than the 1/16 of an inch, you can see I'm hitting it. But nope, every one of my tiles, I can snake in and out and around and all over, and that's it. Alright, so here we are with the stones here that are on the wire, on the mesh, and I've already put a thin skim coat here onto the wall. And you don't want to do too much because it's all going to come oozing through here anyway. So what you want to do here is we're just going to back butter this one here a little bit, just a very thin amount, because the combination of this 1/8 inch or so that I'm putting on the back of here with about an 1/8 inch on the wall there is going to equal almost a 1/4 of an inch. So this way here, we're assuring that we're going to get some pretty good coverage here. Now I'm hoping that since we put the blue tape on the front side, that it'll keep these things here intact and that it won't slide down the wall or kind of fold on itself. Sometimes the blue tape isn't really effective enough, it's not stiff enough. So we'll have to see what it does here. And if that's the case, then we'll end up having to put this onto some Kerdi membrane first, and then putting Kerdi membrane on to the wall. Sort of an intermediary step, but I'm hoping this will go pretty good. So I'm just kind of making sure I got a nice even amount here. I'm trying not to put too much in there, just enough to make us 100% contact. And by the way, when you're back buttering tiles, don't be fooled into thinking, oh, I've got 100% coverage just because you've back buttered the whole back of your tile. You don't get 100% coverage unless you have 100% coverage, unless everything here is touching everything there. That's the way coverage works. So when you comb down your big tiles and you got those trowel lines, those parallel trowel lines, if those lines don't collapse down, you're not going to get any contact. The only part that will be contacting is just the top part of those lines there. All right, so I've got what I think is a good workable amount here on here. Let me just add a little bit more to these guys. And then you can see what I've done down here at the bottom. The Curdy panel board actually ends right there. So there's about a 1/2 inch gap or so. So what I've done is I've actually filled that in with Thinset mortar just to make sure that the rocks at the bottom have some kind of support behind them, because kids are going to be throwing toys and who knows what's going to be happening in this bathtub later on. And you want to have support behind this. You don't want any loose part of the tiles hanging down. And that's why you really can't see it from the camera angle, but there's a little bit of a gap right there that I'm going to fill in right now, which is on the big tile, just to make sure that that big tile has adequate coverage behind it. So I'm going to put them in there and fill in that gap. And now we're ready to try our luck on this piece. Just very gently lift it, let it hang. You don't want to bend it, twist it or anything, just let it hang. And push it into the mortar. So far it's holding. So what we want to do then is use our wood board here. Just push them in. And now he's nice and flat in there. And so what we're going to do is, once this sets up, we'll give it about a 1/2 hour or so to kind of firm up a little more. And then we'll come in and we'll peel off the tape. Let me just see if I can gently even pull a little of the tape off now. Yeah, see, well, it'll tend to pull some of these rocks with it. See? So you have to wait a little while. So once that happens, I don't feel comfortable leaving the tape on overnight like some people do, because you don't know what happened to the rocks in there, and you don't want to come in tomorrow and find out that one is sticking out at an angle at you. So you want to wait till it sets up, peel the tape off, find the ones that need to be adjusted, and go ahead and adjust them.